You're listening to Where You Live with Gene and Tony.
We're back. This is Where You Live with Gene and Tony. We're broadcasting live from the Concierge Landscape Studios, and we're brought to you by Extreme Exteriors. Right now, it's time for a message from the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association. This MHA Minute is brought to you by Pest Control Services. When you need an exterminator, you want someone reliable and effective. Give Greg Keener a call at Pest Control Services, 952-894-9748. Pest Control Services is a proud member of Angie's List and the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association. Pest Control Services, 952-894-9748. 9748. Tell Greg that Gene and Tony sent you.
If you're renting out a property for the first time, there's a lot you need to know so that you can do it successfully and, frankly, keep yourself out of trouble. Luckily, there's a statewide resource with all the tools you need to run your new business successfully. In fact, the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association regularly holds a seminar called Accidental Landlord, specifically designed for people who are renting out a property for the first time. They also have residential leases, security deposit agreements, a lead disclosure, and lots of other forms. They even have brochures on the principles of successful property management and the eviction process that you can download for free. So if you want to know more about the Accidental Landlord Seminar or other classes about owning, managing, or maintaining anything from a single unit to a growing apartment portfolio, visit the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association's website, mmha.com. That's two M's, mmha.com.
We've been talking to attorney Dan Greenstein from Bernick Lifson, and our conversation has led to rental restrictions that are put in place by homeowners associations. And Dan, you helped one of the homeowner associations that we manage draft a lease addendum for rental agreements. Can you tell me what was the goal of this homeowners association in drafting this addendum?
Sure. Well, it was a couple things. They were very concerned about investors coming in and purchasing foreclosed units or a number of units, and they were concerned about the changing tenor of their association and those types of problems. It's also an association with quite a few delinquencies. So the first thing we did was I tried to focus on behavior that they were opposed to. And one of those things is they were concerned about tenants violating provisions that the owners have to comply with in either the declaration or the rules. So what we did, we required anybody leasing a unit in the association to incorporate a copy of the declaration and the rules of the association into the actual lease. And I mean by that, actually attaching them to the lease so the terms of the declaration and the terms of the rules become a part of the lease agreement.
Yep, I like that. I think it helps require good management of the rental.
And then we went a step further. Then we said, okay, the owner that rents the unit out hereby gives the association the right to evict that tenant for any breach of the lease that deals with the declaration provisions or the rules and regulations. So if a tenant is continuously, not picking up dog waste, having loud parties, leaving trash and litter lying around, and the owner won't do anything about it, after, sufficient notice and time, the association can go to court, bring an action under the lease itself, and evict the tenant.
Okay, Dan, that's where you left me behind.
Because in the amendment, it actually assigns the right under the lease to do this to the homeowners association. It is coupled with a power of attorney, which says the association can sign my name, the owner's name, on the paperwork to evict the tenant, and it is a very powerful weapon that the association has when the owner will not comply.
Okay, Dan. Knowing you, I know that you wrote this in the best possible way to protect the homeowners association, but I have issue with it. Has anything like this ever actually been tried in housing court?
Of course not, Tony. we are being creative here, and we are pushing the envelope.
Yeah. Oh, well, you are. You are pushing the envelope.
But here's what I'll tell you about it. Under the law, there's absolutely nothing prohibiting an owner of real estate from transferring some or all of their rights.
Okay.
Now, I think you might agree with me that if I own a rental property, I can assign my right to manage it to a management company.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
I can give that management company the right to rent it out and to evict people and do that kind of thing. Correct?
Yep, that's true.
Why can't I assign those same rights to the HOA?
Okay. All right. Here's what I think will happen. This is my opinion, Dan. I think the HOA sends its representative to housing court. The tenant shows up, the renter shows up in housing court, and the tenant says to the judge, I don't rent from this entity, this homeowners association. I have no idea who they are, and they are not my landlord.
So you're concerned, Tony, that this might just add greater confusion, or in the judge's eyes, saying there is no relationship that exists here?
That's right. And in my experience in housing court, the courts very rightly so want to protect people's homes, and they want to protect housing for renters. So they are very, very careful to uphold all renters' rights, and they're very careful to hold the landlord or the landlord's agent to every single statute, rule, clause in a lease.
I don't dispute that at all, Tony, but what I will say is this, and I'm not saying that the first housing court referee that hears this is going to understand it and go along with it. Yeah. I'm saying under the law, we are recording against the real estate all of these provisions that we're talking about now. The power of attorney that runs to the HOA, the right to evict, the assignment of the right to evict the tenant, the declaration and is of course recorded against all of the real estate, and the amendment that we're drafting these provisions in is recorded against all of the real estate.
Okay.
So I'm not saying it's not going to be a tough struggle at first, but under the law, all of these things should work.
Okay, well,
we have, right now, it looks like we have a caller on line one, an Adam from Hastings who wants to get in on this conversation. Let's bring him on. Adam, good morning. Hello, Adam.
I'm here.
Oh, good. Thank you for joining us. Now you have a question that you want to bring up here this morning.
Yes, this is for the attorney Dan Greenstein. I'm wondering. I'm living in a homeowners association in Hastings, and there's some renters that have moved into one of the units that was one of my neighbors just moved out, and he rented his place because he wasn't able to sell it. Now, these renters, they're younger. They've been a huge disturbance to the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. They've vandalized things during Christmas. They've had loud late parties, things like that. I'm wondering, does the homeowners association have any recourse with the renters directly, or do they have to speak with the homeowner to deal with the renters? Like, is there any power that the homeowners association has over the renter?
Dan? Do we have...
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep,
okay,
now we can
you
hear you, Dan.
Okay.
That's a great question.
Yeah, this is a good question, and a relevant one. It's going on a lot. And in general, we have to look to the governing documents of your specific association to see what rights, if any, the HOA board would have directly with the tenant. Mm-hmm. In general, their only recourse is with the owner. Most governing documents only allow the association in that situation to take action against the owner, whether it be fining or taking them to court, those types of things, unless they become creative and push the envelope, which is kind of what we're talking about today. They're going to be left just dealing with the owner.
Yeah. Oh. And I have to say that what I would recommend to someone in your situation, Adam, is to always call the police when you're disturbed or when you suspect vandalism, and to always call your homeowners association when you have a problem, because the association's going to need some ammunition, like police reports and documentation of complaints when they go after the owner of that unit.
Well, that's a great point, because I think all of us would agree that the issue or the problem when it comes to eviction court is that you need to be more. You can't be subjective. You have to be
Not at all.
objective with
That's right.
with the information that you have.
So that landlord, if they do end up having to evict that tenant, they need that documentation as well. It's very difficult in reality to evict a tenant for behavior issues. It's a slam dunk if you can show that they haven't paid their rent. That's pretty much a slam dunk for eviction. But man, you talk to any property management company about going to court to try and evict someone for some behavior issue, it is very difficult. The courts do not want to kick people out of their homes.
Yeah. Well, Dan, this is I guess great information. This is interesting to see how this goes. This just started now with this association just within the last few months.
It has, and I've actually kind of worked it into some other association declarations, and honestly, to date, no one has tried to challenge it. Owners and tenants have pretty much gone along with it, and I don't know if that's because they brought it to their attorney, and the attorney said, well, here it is in black and white, or if it just hasn't become an issue yet.
Yeah. Well, Dan, we're coming up to the top of the hour. Thanks a lot for taking a few minutes to be with us today.
You're very welcome. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. We'll see you, Dan.
Dan Greenstein, always, I guess, one of the hardest thinking attorneys that I know of, and
I do
really
love
working
his
hard.
creativity.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, folks, don't go away. We've got a whole nother hour with Where You Live with Gene and Tony next. Managing HOAs in the times of crisis, and the Texas Homeowners Advocacy Group. That and more next hour.